All right, Javier Montes, thank you for being here with me. This is one of the guys in the Brotherhood. He's done the 31-day challenge, and he's doing some exciting stuff. This man is a father. He's a father of 3 girls. He's an entrepreneur. He's a husband. And we're going to get into a bunch of stuff that he's accomplished recently. Over the last few years, he's been on this journey, and it's really showing the transformation. And we're going to talk about what rock bottom was like and how he got to where he is. Javier, thanks for being here.
Thank you, Joel. Thank you for having me. I'm super honored to be here, and so excited to share with you and really give you some insight into the transformation. You've been a great part of that. You've inspired me along the way and kind of, led me the right way. So I'm super happy to be here. Thank you.
Cool, man. All right. So you've gotten this transformation. I can't wait to dig into it. And we're going to talk about where rock bottom was and how that inspired you to lift up. But before we do that, I want to hear about your childhood. What was it like growing up? Where were you born? Who are your parents? What was that? Do you have siblings? Tell us about that.
Yeah, so I was born here in Miami, South Florida, born and raised my entire life in one house down near Brickell. And my parents both immigrated to the United States from other countries. My mom from Cuba, my dad from Peru. And they came here with nothing. And they worked their way up here. I always talk about them being so brave and so courageous to just pack up their entire family and come to another country where they don't speak the language and just try to make a life and understand the culture is different and how do things work here and the laws are different. And so I saw my parents do that. And ever since I was a young kid, I always had this entrepreneurial spirit. My parents joke and tease all the time that one of my favorite times a year used to be the day after Christmas. And the day after Christmas, why? Because I would tell my dad, hey, take me around the neighborhood. And I would want to go to the rich neighborhoods. So I'd want to go to areas like Coral Gables and, some of those areas, because all the kids would throw away their old bikes because they got a new bike. So we would go around and I would pick up these old bikes, old wagons, old toys. And then I would turn around, fix them up a little bit, and then sell them. And that was something I did as a small kid. And I wasn't really excited about the presents I was going to get under the tree, but more the day after Christmas. So that was always something really, really funny that my parents always talk about. And I think that's probably where my entrepreneurial mindset just kind of started.
And did that happen because you needed the money, or you just like the idea of extra spending money? What was that? How'd that happen?
It happened because my dad and my mom, more my dad, he always had this dream about having a business and being able to, create something from nothing and working for yourself. And so I was young and inspired by that. And I was like, well, how can I make my own money? I couldn't get a job because there's labor laws, and I couldn't really do much besides sell lemonade outside. But I thought about what are ingenious ways. So that was one of them. I remember when I was maybe about 10 years old, we used to go to the beach every weekend. My parents had a condo on the beach. And what I would do is I would take garbage bags with me, and I would go through the entire beach, walk up and down while everybody was swimming, and I'd pick up cans. Because at that time, in different parts of the neighborhood, there was these recycling machines where if you dumped cans, they would give you coins. Well, I'd show up with 6, 7 garbage bags full and walk out with $20, $30, $40. And It was just something I would do during our summer vacations. My mom would be super upset because we would come back from the beach. I'd come back with all these garbage bags full of cans, and then I would leave them in the backyard till I had, a nice little stack. And of course, it's kind of gross. So cockroaches would go inside those bags. And my mom was like, get rid of all this stuff.
Yeah. And they smell like beer and old soda.
I was digging through trash cans because that's where I would find the most, aluminum cans. It was kind of crazy, but
it's awesome. Those are good lessons at an early age to go through. So elementary, middle school, high school, what was that like?
So when I was 12 years old, I asked my dad, I was going to, school dances in middle school, and I was really fascinated by the DJ. There was one DJ in the neighborhood, and he would do all the parties, all the school dances, and I was fascinated by what he was doing. I was just, I was, I guess, called to the music and called to how he would just control the vibe, and it was just an awesome thing. And I was kind of like a weird kid. I would kind of be next to the DJ, kind of in front of just watching what he's doing and try to learn from that. And lo and behold, every party I was doing that. And he told me one day, hey, I'm upgrading my equipment. I'm going to sell this. You want to buy it? I was like, yeah, of course. And he tells me, great, it's $3,000.
Whoa, $3,000 for a kid.
I'm 12 years old, and I'm like, oh, okay. So I go home, I tell my dad, hey, Dad, can you lend me $3,000? And he looks at me like, are you out of your mind? I'm not going to lend you $3,000. You're 12 years old. How are you going to pay me back? I'm like, I'm going to buy this equipment and I'm going to do parties. And this guy's the only one. So like, I'll be able to do it too. And, you know, definitely I'll be able to pay you back. And he said, you are absolutely crazy. There's no way I'm lending you that money. Well, I bothered him so much over the next like 4 months that one day he just threw his hands up and said, fine, I'll lend you the $3,000, but you're going to pay me back every last penny. And I don't care how long it takes you, but you're going to pay me back. And I said, yeah, Dad, let's go. So funny part is I got the equipment. We went there and I saw the equipment. I was like, all right. And the guy says, all right, where's your truck? And I was like, well, I don't have a truck. And he says, well, how are you going to take the equipment? I was like, oh my God, I don't know. I hadn't thought about that. So my cousin at that time was like 18, 19 years old. So I ended up having to tell my cousin, hey, can you come pick this equipment up, take it to my house. We dropped it in my living room. And then I would try to get parties and get people to hire me. And I didn't have a car. I couldn't even drive. I was 12 years old.
You needed a truck just to do the parties.
So I would have to pay my cousin, make sure he was available to come pick up the equipment, take me to the party, wait till the end of the party, pick me up, take me back home and all this. But the funny part is that I remember exactly to the day, 1 year later, I paid my dad back the $3,000.
Wow. Good.
And that was the beginning of that journey. Now, some people know my story. You may know about that. But that turned into, little by little, I started doing more parties. And I started doing more parties. And then that turned into my first real official business, my first company. And, you know, a few years later, we turned into one of the biggest entertainment companies here in South Florida. We're doing over $1 million in revenue. We were doing about 350 events a year. I had a sales office. I had a warehouse. It turned into this real big thing that my parents had always told me, hey, leave that stupid little DJ thing. It's never going to take you anywhere. Focus on school, get good grades, go to college. And I said, well, I love doing this. It doesn't even feel like work. And that was just one of my biggest, like, growing up stories. I just kept with it all through high school. I was doing it. I got into college. Yes, I got a full-time job at a bank. I was doing all that. And then one day the bank did something I didn't like and I got really upset about it. And I turned in my 2 weeks resignation and my boss was like, are you out of your mind? And I said, well, you know, the banks are always going to be here. So I'm just going to try to do this little DJ thing and see where it takes me. And lo and behold, it turned into, that turned into me joining EO because I hit $1 million. That's where I met you through one of these events. And my life has just completely taken a whole amazing direction. And it all started, again, with my childhood, with my dad asking him for that money.
What would you tell a parent who's got a kid who's interested in something and maybe 80% focus on school, not 100% because they've got this itch? What would you tell them about that if it's an entrepreneurial itch?
It's a great question. And I know it's a very controversial topic. And I have very different views and opinions to what mainstream sees this. But I raise my girls in a way where I want them to follow their passion. I want them to follow what they love to do. And I believe if they continue following what they love to do, one, they're never going to work a day in their life. Two, they're going to enjoy every single day doing what they love to do. And three, because they enjoy it so much and it never feels like work and they enjoy doing it, they're going to get so damn good at it that the world is going to provide for them more than enough. So whether it's entrepreneurial, whether it's artistic, I encourage parents to not force their child, but more watch their child. Like, what does your child do during their off time, during their free time? When they're at home and they just can do whatever they want to do, what do they do, right? One of my daughters, she's in competitive dance, and we go and she goes to the dance and all this stuff, and then at some point she's like, "Oh, Dad, I don't want to go today." And I'm like, "Huh, okay. If you don't want to go, I'm not going to force you, but when competition time comes, don't complain when you're not in the top spots that you're trying to shoot for, because I always teach them the one who makes it to the top is the one who works the hardest. There's no secret. It's not a gamble." So as I watched her during her free time, she's not dancing. What I found her doing is she's singing. And so I see her liking dance, but now as I'm watching her, she's just a fanatic of singing. She takes a shower, she's singing. I'm blow drying her hair, she's singing. We go outside to play, she's singing. The other day, we do these daddy-daughter dates. We do them every quarter, and this quarter, she wanted to go riding a jet ski for the first time. She's like, "Oh my God, Dad, I want to ride a jet ski, and this and that, and I want to drive it, and yada, yada, yada," right? So we're so excited to do this. So we went out, we were riding this jet ski, And we finally got out far enough because she's still little. You're not supposed to ride jet skis. And so I asked her, I stopped for a second. I'm like, hey, baby, you want to sit in the driver's seat a little bit? Like, sit in front of me and you can steer. And she tells me, hey, Dad, yes, but not right now. I'm singing now.
Wow.
I was like,
she was entertained by her own singing more than a jet ski.
yeah, so we're out here in the middle of the ocean riding this jet ski. She gets an opportunity to drive, and she tells me, no, Dad, I'm singing. Like, she's in her zone. And I just opened my eyes. I'm like, this is what she loves to do.
That's her thing.
And I've never given her training on it. So this year, we're focusing a lot more on saying, all right, let's get her into singing lessons.
Good.
And the dancing is there. And I'm sure, like, if she wants to be a singer one day, you got to perform too, right? So the dancing's going to complement it. But I thought it was dancing, and it's not dancing.
And they're both music related. The brain is being stimulated in the same way and developing. So I'm sure that's good either way.
So it's artistic, right?
And by the way, I have an aunt, a very young aunt. She's only a few years older than me. She's never, hardly ever in her life had a job that wasn't dancing. She was a Laker girl for 4 years. She's been in like 100 and something movies. And so there is a future in that if they have a serious passion and they really want to do it and they're good at it. But what a great thing to be able to also look at that. And that's good advice, to look at what your kid really enjoys when it's their choice, not when you're forcing them to play a sport or, or telling them you're going to finish this season because you wanted to do it. That's a good idea.
Yeah. And my other daughter, I watch her, and during our daddy-daughter dates, right, we ask, hey, what do you want to do? You can do anything you want. What do you want to do? And for the last 2 times, she's told me she wants to go to the adoption shelter.
Animals?
She is in love with animals. Like, just obsessed with all kinds of animals. Could be cats, could be dogs, we go to the zoo and things, and she's just obsessed with them, right? So as a parent, I talk to a lot of men sometimes, and they're like, oh, but, why does your daughter do so dance? Like, there's no future in that. There's no career in that. And I said, I'm not trying to build her a career. I'm trying to just find out what it is that she loves. And where's she going to, flourish? And what is she going to do on her free time? Because eventually, if she can do that for the rest of her life, she's going to be 1, happy, 2, fulfilled, and 3, she's going to be real, real good at it.
Yeah. And the market will pay whoever's really good at something. And by the way, if someone thinks that there's no future in dancing, there's really no future in baseball either, because I was pretty good and I played up to my first year in college and I hurt my back. And even if I hadn't hurt my back, you know how hard it would have been for me to have gotten drafted into the minors. And if you do that, that's amazing. You're in like the 1%. And if you do that, I think I read years ago, there's like, if you get drafted and you're in the minor leagues, there's only a 4% chance you even make it to the majors. And some of those only make it for a day. So we put our kids in a lot of things that don't have futures for them, but we believe they will, like travel sports. Like 99% of those kids aren't going to make it, but the parents seem to think so. Yeah, if the kids are enjoying it and it's making them work hard, I think that's a good.
Yeah, it's good. And for me, I think that the extracurricular activities like dance or singing or sports or whatever it may be, for me, the biggest value is in practicing. It's a vehicle to practice the process of life and success, right? So every season I sit down with my girls and we say, all right, what are your goals for this season? So we're going to go through a dance season. What's your goals? Oh, I want to place top 3. I want to do this. I say, great. So what are we going to do this season that's going to lead you to that? And what's it going to take? And what kind of work? Do you need to learn new moves? Do you need to learn new tricks? Do you take extra classes? What do you need to do differently than you did last season? So whether it's dance, whether it's baseball, whether it's singing, for me, it's all about teaching the process of setting goals. Then what are you going to work in the middle of it? And then at the end, you get the results. Whether you win or you don't win, you still learn a lesson.
But they're measurable because you made them set goals. Like, okay, well, let's see if you do that or not. We're going to know if you did it or not. You did the work or not.
Exactly.
That's great. So speaking of kids and bringing up kids, another thing that might sound controversial, I don't think it is, but you homeschool. Talk about that.
Yes. So when this first started, this happened because of COVID. And this was, again, we kind of got pushed into it. It wasn't something, I always grew up thinking homeschooled kids were for children who had maybe learning disabilities or children who needed special attention, or they just couldn't go to regular school for whatever reason. So I never in my life imagined or thought that my kids would be homeschooled. I just thought maybe, kids who, I don't know, can't socialize or something. I don't know. And COVID happened, and our family had really strong opinions about masks and all this stuff that was really controversial. And we said, you know what, we're just not going to deal with that. So we kind of kept our kids home. When all this started going on, we said, all right, we'll figure out what we do. We'll do some home learning. We thought this was going to take a few weeks, so soon we'll be back in school. No big deal. A few weeks turned into a few months. And then when they finally let kids back in school, they said, hey, you can come to school, but you got to wear a mask. I said, my kids are not going to wear masks. So we'll just finish this school year here at home. And we started this online learning thing. And that's how it started. At the end of the year, I sat down with my kids. I said, hey, now all this is done. Do you want to go back to school? And they said, no, Dad, we love this. And I was working full time still at that time. And I was like, man, this is a really neat, unique opportunity, because during these few months, my kids have advanced more than all of their friends. Now, why? Why? Because we're learning at their speed. If they grab a concept, we move on to the next one, right? In a regular school, if my kids grab a concept and the rest of the kids haven't grabbed it, well, we're still on that lesson.
They teach to the lowest common denominator. The slowest kid is going to slow that whole class down.
Yeah. And so it doesn't matter how fast my kids learn. And then as this was evolving more, I was watching their friends, and parents started complaining, oh, my kids get 3 hours of homework. And I thought to myself, wow, that's just crazy. 3 hours of homework. Like, where's your family time? Do you go outside and play? Like, what's all this? And I was like, well, wait a second. Nobody's doing this anymore. Nobody's going outside and play. I used to go outside and play, ride my bike, when my parents would tell me be home before it got dark. And now it's kind of lost. And I said, well, I really enjoy what we're doing. And I was spending a lot more time with my girls. And I said, I'm really, really liking this. They're learning a lot faster than their peers.
And at that time, were you still working full-time?
I was working full-time. But what started happening... no, I was working in the office, but since it was COVID, we would do like a few days at home and a few days at the office.
So what would you do? How did the girls do school the days you were in the office?
What I would start to do when I was in the office was I sent them to my parents' house, and we hired a teacher to come in 2 days a week, and they would teach them for 2 hours a day.
Yeah.
I started getting really into the curriculum and how the schools teach and how much time of learning they actually learn. And in regular schools in elementary, it's really only about 2 hours of actual real learning and teaching. The rest of the time is spent in recess, it's spent in breaks, it's spent in lunch, it's spent in, just practicing some of the stuff that they already, but real learning time is really only 2 hours.
Yeah, I can see that.
So we hired a teacher to come in on those days. They would go to my parents' house since my parents were retired, and that's where it started. On the other days, I would be at home, and I would get to spend most of the day with them. And I would, work from home, do my emails, but we would get to do extracurricular things. And at that point, the next year, I quit my job, and I said, no, I'm going to be home full time. And I started working on my next business, which is what I'm working on now. And during that time, I started realizing, wait a second, as I found out about the curriculum, is in Florida, you can teach your kids whatever you want. Yeah. Private schools are not required to follow any curriculum. They can do whatever it is they want. They can teach the kids whatever it is they want. And if parents want to put their kid in that school to learn whatever that school's teaching, there's no requirement to learn any math. There's no requirement to learn any reading, no reading comprehension, nothing. So if they want to teach woodwork all day, and that's a private school, you can send your kid there, and that's 100% okay.
Yeah.
And I said, well, if I can have the opportunity to teach my kids anything, well, I do want them to learn some math, because arithmetic is important. I also want them to learn how to read, because they need to communicate and write and type. But a lot of these advanced things were kind of silly, right? Like, I always thought it was silly for me to memorize the periodic table of elements in high school. It was silly for me to learn a lot of these things that were just for passing a test. Yep. And so what I did was I said, all right, this year we're going to focus on learning some of the things that I want my kids to learn. So we started teaching them about money and finance. So if you talk to my kids, they know what a credit score is. They know what interest rates are. They know how to calculate that. They know how to calculate mortgage payments. My kids, we have another class that we teach them, and it's about public speaking. So they're required to stand up, and they give presentations to our family every single week. They have to give a presentation. They have to, their book reports are actual presentations that they have to give. So public speaking is another thing that we do in our family. So these are things that I thought were life skills that they're not really teaching or focusing on in regular school, and my kids are doing. And aside from that, then I take them with me during the day to do all of my regular day-to-day things. So when we go to the bank, they know what happens at a bank.
They're in that conversation.
Every single time I ask them, hey, we're going to deposit money. What's deposit, Dad? All right, well, this is what it is. Well, who's that? That's a teller. And what do they do? And, and they meet people. And we're big Costco fanatics. So we go to Costco like almost every single week. Well, they know like 5 or 6 employees on a first name basis that work at Costco. So they're already meeting people. They're out there in the world. And, you know, there's 3 girls and I walk around with them. So it kind of catches attention. So people are like, hey, look at them, look at that. So they are going out there in the world. They're interacting with the world in a way that most kids are not getting this opportunity to.
Their transition into the world is going to be the smoothest thing because they're already in it. As opposed to the kid who just is in a box. He goes to school, goes home and does homework, plays video games, sits around, never has an adult conversation, is wearing headphones at dinner and just in their own world. And then they're thrown into the whole world and then they can't function.
Yeah, they can't function. They don't know how to interact with other people. They don't know how to smile and say hi to other people. And it's just a completely different way of life. So we've fallen in love with this homeschool concept, and more parents I know are transitioning to it. They're seeing the value of it. The ones that are in our inner circles are watching my girls develop, and they're always asking like, man, your girls are so amazing. They talk to people. They're not scared. They're outgoing, you know. And I say, well, it's just one of those things that we practice every day. We go out there and we practice every single day. We go out to eat somewhere, you know, they understand what the prices are. They understand what tax is. They understand why we pay tax. They understand that if we go out to eat, there's a gratuity that you should be given for the service that's given, right? And they memorize the servers' names, and they know how to ask and order their own food, like small things.
Yeah, these things are very important, and they add up. I was just, yesterday I got back from Tennessee. I was spending time with AJ Coots and his family.
Yes.
And they homeschool their 4 kids. And man, those kids are advanced. They were way better conversationalists than the average kid, like your girls are, and I've seen that. And they just knew things about life and how things worked as opposed to just sitting in a box. And, oh, by the way, they were reading at a way more advanced level than their age. So I don't know where the downside is. I guess if you don't put them in like dance and the things that you put them in, I guess they could be too much at home, but you're taking them out to do the things and they're signing up for extracurricular activities.
Yeah. So one of the requirements that we talk about, because we were really thinking about this, like homeschooling and having social problems and interaction, like my wife and I agreed from day one, it is going to be a requirement that they have to participate in other team sports or extracurricular activities. Yep. They're not allowed to do nothing. So my girls have a requirement. They can pick whatever they want, but they have to be a part of some other type of sport, art, something.
Yeah. And it's funny because 10 years ago, this would have sounded like these must be some serious hippies, right? What are they, just completely against the system? But every day it's making more and more sense, especially when you see the downfall of the system. And if you don't agree with it for whatever reasons. We did homeschooling with one son for a year. We ended up sending him to military school. And it was for him the best thing. He needed that 8th, 9th, 10th grade. He went away. But I could see how with the right kid who that could work for, it would work. This was just an extreme 1%. Had it worked with him, we would have probably homeschooled all of them. But that was our oldest, and it just didn't work with him. But man, congratulations. That's a very good thing.
I think parents ask me all the time, and I think the hardest thing is, number one, patience with your kids, right? So if you're going to teach them yourself, you know, that takes a lot of patience. We hire a teacher because that's the time that I take to work on my business. I'm with my girls 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. If they're not in dance class, they're with me. Mm-hmm. So the teacher time when they're learning, it's actually a much better dynamic because there's a teacher. It's not just dad telling you to do this, do that. Let's learn this. So the dynamic works a lot better. I'd recommend definitely investing in hiring a teacher.
And are you still doing that 2 days a week?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And that covers a good amount.
Yeah,
good.
So that part's good. And then also the other thing that I wanted to say was, man, I forgot. Slipped my mind.
Oh, we'll come back to it.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about this. In your life, in all of our lives, we go through ups and downs. If it'd be easy if life were this nice, smooth trajectory, it never is, ever. Talk about some low point for you. Is there a point you hit rock bottom? Where was it toughest for you?
Yeah, there's definitely a very clear point. So I would say I was around 35, 36 years old.
You're how old now?
I'm 42.
Okay.
And at that time, you know, life was okay. You know, I was just doing what everybody was doing. And I remember it was coming up to my wife's birthday. And one day I wake up and I go to the bathroom to brush my teeth like I did every single day. And I'm brushing my teeth normal. And all of a sudden, just out of nowhere, toothpaste just falls on my shirt. And I thought, man, that's kind of weird. right? So I look up at the mirror, and as I'm kind of holding the toothbrush in my mouth, and I'm kind of, doing my normal thing, I realize that the entire right side of my face is paralyzed. I can't move it. I can't control it. It's just not responding to me.
Is that Bell's palsy?
Yeah. So I immediately run. I wake up my wife. I'm like, oh my God. First thing that comes to my mind is you're about to have a stroke, right?
Yeah.
Like, oh my gosh, you hear about these things. So I'm panicking. I'm like, hey, babe, let's go. We got to go to the hospital. So she takes me to the ER, and, they take blood. They do all these kind of scans and blah, 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 blah. And, about an hour and a half later, the doctor comes in and he says, Javier, we have some good news and some bad news. I said, all right, well, tell me. He says, the good news is you're not having a stroke. The bad news is you have something called Bell's palsy. And I said, Bell's what? He said, Bell's palsy. It's this rare condition, happens to some people, and basically what happens is you get half facial paralysis. And I said, all right, great. Can you fix it? And he says, well, this typically tends to go away on its own. Sometimes it could take about 4 months, and sometimes it could take about 4 years. And about 95% of people, they make a full recovery. About 5% never make a full recovery. I'm like, okay, great. Well, how can I have a full recovery? He said, there's really no treatment for it.
Nothing. There's no surgery, medicine,
nothing. He's
physical
like,
therapy.
We have this pill that we can give you. It's some kind of medicine, but it only works in like 10% of the people. I was like, well, give that to me. Let's just see, right? So my next question to him was, how did I get this? Right? Like, where did this come from? And he says, well, we really don't know for sure where it comes from, but our best scientific evidence shows that it happens to people who are overly stressed. And I looked at him and I said, that's not me. I've seen stressed out people, and I'm not one of them. And he says, He says, what do you do for work? And I said, well, I'm an entrepreneur. He says, interesting. How's your exercise habits? And I said, well, they're okay. I go sometimes, sometimes not. He's like, great. How about your eating habits? I said, well, I'm an entrepreneur. So I'm always on the go, always running and going from place to place. So I eat what I can when I can. He's like, all right. That's just interesting. And I thought to myself, man, this guy's not telling me anything, right? But he's asking me all these questions, and he's
Did
making
that lead you to think in that direction?
I did.
Yeah.
So we finally got home, and the first thing I did, I sat on my computer and I got into Google and I said, what are symptoms of highly stressed out people? And 10 things popped up. And as I read that list, I was looking, check. 8 out of those 10 things related to me.
Wow.
And I thought to myself, wow, is it possible that I'm overly stressed? And I just thought to myself, I was like, no, this can't be. I'm an entrepreneur. This is what everybody's doing, right? Everybody lives this life. This is just the way it goes, right? So I sat there and I thought to myself, let me just take a quick analysis of my life. Let me take a snapshot. What does it look like? And so the first area I looked at was, of course, my finances. And in my world, it always seemed like there was too much month left at the end of each check.
Not enough money.
Yeah, right. Not enough money to make it all the way to the end of the month, right? Mortgage payment was due at the end of the month, and it just seemed like, man, there's just ran out. The month is so long. That was one. Promotional 0% APR credit cards just seem to always come in the mail at the right, perfect time, right? To just give me enough breathing room to kind of get to whatever the next stage was. So I figured, I was like, oh, this can't be good. Next, I took a look at myself and my health and my fitness, and we'll start with Costco packs of Advils and ibuprofens was a normal occurrence for me.
Because of headaches?
I would get headaches maybe 5 out of 7 days out of the week. Sometimes really bad. What I would define, I guess, as a migraine. I never knew what that was, but that was what it was. So I would take those. And of course, because I had really bad headaches and I lived this entrepreneurial life, nighttime, my choice was Advil PMs. So that was maybe 3 or 4 times a week. And of course, since you take Advil PMs and you wake up in the morning and you had 5 hours of sleep because you went to sleep late and you got to get up early, I would wake up groggy. So naturally, my breakfast of champions was a Red Bull.
Oh boy, man, you were on a roller coaster.
Yeah, so that would pick me up and get me going. So I would say Red Bull was maybe once or twice a day. Of course, my eating was whatever I could find at the time and whatever I could afford. So McDonald's, BK, Taco Bell was, pretty common. And then I looked at my relationships and I said, oh, let me take a look at it. And I looked around. I didn't have many friends. I didn't think much of it because, again, I was busy being a husband. I was busy trying to be a dad to newborn kids. And I just thought, well, everybody's busy doing the same thing, right? So like they don't call me and I don't call them because we're busy. So I didn't really have many friends. And then I looked at my wife, and as I thought about her, I thought, man, like I don't really know much of what's going on in her world. Like I know she goes to work, I know she does her work, but like what's she most looking forward to right now? I have no idea. What's bothering her right now? I have no idea. And I figured I didn't really know much about her. I mean, our conversations revolved around a few things, right? So, what our next vacation was going to be, maybe any kids' appointments, doctor's appointments, or any of that kind of stuff. And, pick up and drop off. I mean, or what's for dinner. Mm-hmm. That's pretty much all we spoke about.
Do you think that's typical? Do you think a lot of guys are going through that?
I think so. The more I talk to more men, the more they're in that same boat. And I think it comes with this idea that it's our job to provide for our family. And therefore, at all costs, we must sacrifice everything to make sure that we provide and continue to provide, because that's what we feel our role is, even at the expense of our own health, our own sanity, our own well-being. Just we don't have time for anything else.
So how did you start making changes from that moment? Was it right away after you had the Bell's palsy episode?
So I sat there and I thought to myself, all right, things need to change. And so I didn't know where to change. And I couldn't ask my wife for help because that would make me seem weak. That would make me seem like I'm not in control, and that was definitely not an option. So I said, well, where can I find help? And as I thought about where I can figure out how to make some changes, and I thought about some ideas, well, I'll start eating healthier, I'll start doing this, like little things. I found myself in about 2 weeks, I was back into my same old habits.
Routine.
Same old routine, same thing I was doing, and I just completely forgot about it. Now I'm walking around with a half paralyzed face. But outside of that, back in the same thing because the bills kept coming, because I still had to provide.
Keep grinding.
There was no other choice, so I just had to. And maybe about a month later, I remember I was at home on my dining room table. I was on my laptop because I was working at home, work I had brought home once again, like I normally do. And my two goddaughters were behind me in the living room, jumping off the couch, playing with each other, doing whatever they were doing, right? Screaming and shouting, blah, blah, blah. And then they just started bickering a little louder, and they started getting into an argument. And I don't know what it was, but they said something or did something, and I slammed my hands on the table. I got up and I screamed at them with such monster-like anger that I'd never done before, so much that they were just all like, and they got scared. They went to their rooms. They started crying. And that was the moment for me that I said, something needs to change. It needs to change right now. This is not normal. This is not life. And
you don't want to accept it.
This is not the man I want to be. This is not the dad I'm going to be. Like, it just, something took over me. And just, I don't know, this rage came out. And I remember I went to the bathroom, and I spent the next 3 nights crying myself to sleep. And I said, man, I don't know what I need to do, but something needs to change in my life. And so I didn't know, I couldn't ask for help. I didn't know who to ask for help. So I did the next best thing I knew how to do, which was I started reading books. I started looking for answers, and I just read books and read another book and another book and another book, and I just kept reading books. And as I was reading all these books, a lot of great ideas, a lot of good things, but I did find that there was a common theme that I started tying some pieces together. And that common theme was that in order to better my life, I needed to build more discipline in my life. And I said, all right, well, how do I build discipline? And one of those books said, the best way to build discipline is to change the limiting belief about you. And I said, oh, limiting belief. I don't even know what that is. I don't have any limiting beliefs. I'm unstoppable. I can do anything I want, right? And you know, in the middle of that, me thinking like, what is a limiting belief? Ironically, one of my friends would call me and said, hey, look, we're going to go to this 5K race. You want to go? And I told him, I can't do 5K races.
There you go. There's one.
Right? And as I said those words, I thought to myself, maybe this is it. And I remember, and this was the thing I'd always said all my life, I said, I'm a sprinter. You want to do a short sprint? Let's go. I'll beat anybody. But long distance, I just can't do that. Now, the irony is, like, my brother, specifically, he's always been a little bit more overweight. But he's done these 5K races, and I've always stayed in awe. I'm like, man, how does he do that? Mm-hmm. Like, that's amazing. And so at that moment, I kind of thought to myself, I said, man, what would happen if I actually tried and I practiced and I just worked at it to try to do 1 mile? And as I sat there, I thought to myself, at 36 years old that I was at that time, I had never in my entire life run 1 full mile without walking. In PE in middle school, I would try to get not to go to school that day because I was so embarrassed. Like, I could do anything else, but that day where they do the time you for the mile, I couldn't do it. I was always one of the last ones because I would just walk. I'd be so gassed. I didn't enjoy it at all. And I was so embarrassed that I would try to not go to school that day. And I said, what would happen if I tried? So I made a promise to myself. I said, I'm going to get up tomorrow morning and I'm going to try. So I got up out of my neighborhood. I had mapped out a mile and in my car. So I got up and I said, all right, here we go. I put on my shoes and I went out running. And as I jogged, I made it to 8 houses. And at the end of those 8 houses, I stopped. I was gasping for air. My heart was beating. I said, oh my God, I'm going to die. And I just said, this is not for me. I can't do this. This is horrible. This is, my legs are too short. I don't know what it is, but this is not for me. And as I was walking back home, I thought to myself, what would happen if I just tried tomorrow to add 1 more house? Like, can I make it to 9 houses? And I promised myself I would get up every day and do 1 more house.
And these aren't houses with acres.
No, these are
suburban.
Regular, probably 7,000 square foot lots. I mean, just regular houses, right? Maybe, I don't know, 20, 50, 75 foot front, right? Mm-hmm. So the next day I got up and I did 9 houses. And again, I felt like I was going to die. The next day I did 10. I still felt like I was going to die. Well, 2.5 weeks later, I did the impossible and I ran my first complete mile without walking a single step. And I thought to myself, wow, that's amazing. I spent 36 years of my life believing I can't run a mile. And here we go, 2.5 weeks of dedication and focus, and I did it. I felt like I was on top of the world. Now, anytime you've probably relate to this, right? Every time you ever hit a goal or you get to the top of the mountain.
Yeah, now what?
Right? The first thing that happens is you get a little bit of pleasure, but what happens is now you see another mountain. Mm-hmm. So I thought to myself, man, if I did this in 2.5 weeks, what would happen if I kept going? So I kept going. 2 weeks later, I did 2 miles. I said, if I could do just 1 more mile, just 1 more. I already did 2. I just got 1/3 left. If I could do 1 more, then I could do one of those fancy races and get a proud little medal that I've never gotten in my entire life.
Yeah, you can join that club.
Yeah, right? So I kept going. I signed up for a 5K race. About a month and a half later, I ran my first full 5K without walking a single step. Well, I got to the top of that mountain and I said, what would happen if I keep going? A 5K turned into a 10K. A 10K turned into a half marathon. And 5.5 years later, I ran my first full 26.2 mile marathon. Mm-hmm. Something that's just not possible for a man like me.
Yeah, because what do you think most guys would have done? And then how could we help them? If they ran those 8 houses and said, yeah, it's not for me. I feel like I'm dying. I'm not built for this. That's what most guys would do, right?
That was me.
So what would you say to them so that they say, let me get up tomorrow and let me go to 9 houses and 10 houses? Because that's what got you to the marathon. You had to keep doing these little baby steps to get there. But how do you help guys not quit after those 8 houses? Because it hurts.
It does. I think that hitting rock bottom was one of those things that just told me like something needs to change and this is what's going to change. So sometimes I think that gives us the motivation. But what I like to tell men that do this is you have to have a really strong why, a reason on why you're going to take on these challenges and why you're going to better yourself and why you're going to improve. And it can't be about yourself. Like, you can't say, well, it's because I want to have a six pack and I want to look good. It's because I want to be, in good shape. No, it has to be like a little bit outside of you, because what I've found in my journey is we hardly ever respect ourselves enough to keep the promises we make to ourselves. But we respect other people, especially those that we care about, more to keep the promises we make to them. Mm-hmm. So for me, it became more about my kids. It became more about my wife. It became about my family. And I said, I need to do this even though I don't like this. I'm not liking any of this. I feel like I'm going to die every day. Mm-hmm. But because I need to become a different person, because I refuse to do what happened back then over there. And something
you don't want to repeat that.
Ever again. I said, I'm never, ever going to go back to that point again.
And another thing, because you're doing it this way, your daughters are watching, and now they're going to expect a little bit extra from their husband one day. And it's probably going to be a guy who's more aware, who's taking care of himself, who is introspective and working on goals. Otherwise, they might find that weird when they're older and they're adults and they meet a man. They might think, well, that's weird. That guy doesn't work out. He doesn't talk about goals. He doesn't work on action plans.
Absolutely, absolutely. The interesting part of this story, and I think the more magical part of it, is that on my journey running towards this goal, I built a level of discipline that transcended into every other area of my life. When I ran that marathon, I went back and I took another snapshot of my life. And what happened in those 5 years, the discipline that it took for me to get to a 26.2 mile marathon. I mean, that's no joke. There's a reason why only like 0.01% of the world population have ever completed or will ever complete a marathon in their life. There's a reason. It's very hard. It's one of the hardest things I've ever done. But when I look back at my life at that point, what had happened over those 5 years, number one, I'd become so disciplined with my money that one biggest goal in my life, I had paid off my house. Mm-hmm. So that was crazy. Like, I had completely changed my financial position. Number two, as I'm doing this and you start running big mileage, if anybody's run that kind of mileage, you get home, I open the fridge and I saw that Red Bull, I almost threw up.
Yeah.
My body starts to crave better nutrition. It needs fuel to keep going at this high mileage.
Not a temporary spike.
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
My headaches, I haven't taken a single Advil in the last 4 years.
Wow. What a difference.
Completely different.
And imagine all the people taking all the unnecessary things like diabetic medication, all these things. I mean, they need it, but what they really need is a better diet, exercise. And so you got rid of, and Tylenol PMs?
All of it's gone.
Sleep better when you're worn out from running.
Absolutely. I didn't need any of that. I was exhausted.
Yeah.
Right? So Red Bull's completely gone. Advil's completely gone. Advil PM's completely gone. I was eating healthier. I looked at McDonald's again. I was almost throwing up. I was like, I can't even eat that. It's not, my body's craving real nutritious fuel to keep going.
Yeah.
And then I turned around and looked at my relationships, and, the best way I can put it, my daughters look at me and they wholeheartedly tell me, Dad, we're so proud of you. Mm-hmm. Dad, you are amazing. Dad, you do all these amazing things. And, me and my wife are, the most passionate we've ever been with each other. I can't stress enough, how much this has transformed and changed my life. And all of it started again with hitting rock bottom, like you said, and then having the courage to really take some action and do hard things that push me way outside my comfort zone.
And your hard doesn't have to be someone else's hard, because if you look at David Goggins, well, he's running 100 miles. If you can only run 8 houses, run the distance of 8 houses, and then the next day 9, and the next day 10. So that's important to realize. You don't have to get up off the couch and run a marathon next week. I highly don't recommend that. It takes months to prepare for it. So find that little bit and go a little bit more and more. So a couple of years back, you took my course, 31 Days to Become a Better Man, got in the Brotherhood, and then we formed 31 Day University, and then you developed your course. Is it unstoppable31.com?
Yes.
The website, unstoppable31.com. And what are the guys, it's a men's program, and what are the guys doing in those 31 days with you?
So in there, we have, I have it broken down in 4 different sections, right? One for each week. So the first week, we focus 100% on mindset. So getting your mind right, thinking properly, making sure that you're getting the right thoughts, making sure that you're getting in the right mindset to really understand what it's going to take to become unstoppable. And when we say unstoppable, I want you to be able to be unstoppable to chase whatever it is that you want to chase, right? If your dream is to have your family on a farm and raise chickens and do that, well, I want to help you become unstoppable to keep going after that and not let nothing get in your way. So the first week is all about mindset. Second week is all about health and fitness. Third week is all about building wealth and fixing your financial positions. And then fourth week is all about relationships and leadership. So relationships with your spouse, relationships with your kids, relationships with friends, and then how you affect your community in terms of leadership.
Good.
So that's how it's broken down in the 4 weeks. The secret that's in here, and I don't want to ruin it for everybody, but I will tell you, this is the underlying message in the entire course, is building discipline in your life. That's what it comes down to, right? I like to explain to guys a lot that, we understand going to the gym, and if I do bicep curls right, my bicep's going to get stronger. And soon enough, I'm putting more weight and I can lift more weight on my bicep. And my bicep gets bigger so I can see it. Well, discipline is a muscle that's inside our brain that unfortunately we can't see. But that muscle in our brain also needs to be exercised. Now, through this course, we're going to start exercising that muscle. We're going to put it to work. And just like in my story, right, I was focused on running and running and running and running. And little by little, it affected every other area of my life. Well, just like when we go to the gym and work out our bicep, it doesn't mean that the only thing we're going to do better is do a bicep curl. Right. We can also carry our luggage at the airport better. We can always carry our kids better, right? We can lift things over our head better just by getting our biceps stronger. Well, our discipline muscle is the exact same way, right? So in this course, we're going to talk about different ways that we're going to exercise the discipline muscle. But once you start working it and it gets stronger, it's going to spill into every other area of your life. You're going to get more disciplined with your finances, and obviously your financial position is going to get better. When you get more disciplined with your kids and spending time with them and making time for your wife and focusing on having deeper conversations, you're making intentional about that, well, your relationships are going to get better. When you focus on better eating habits and you focus on exercising regularly and you focus on these things, this is all about getting disciplined in your exercise habits, right? So your health and fitness is going to get better.
They pour over so much even within those 4 things, because if you're eating healthy and not putting poisons in your body, you show up as a better dad and a better husband and as a better example to them. But also you feel better. You're not having spikes. I mean, if you're having a bunch of Red Bulls every day, that's going to wire you up in a bad way. Then you're going to crash in the evening.
Of course.
So these all cross and transcend between them.
Yeah, the underlying hidden theme is that. Like, I've never met a man who tells me, oh my God, I just need to become more disciplined. Like, I know that's the answer.
They'll just talk about this one thing that they need to work on.
Right. It's, I need to fix my money. Like, if I made more money, all my problems would be solved.
Yeah, that's rarely the case.
It's not the case, right?
Yeah.
And if I tell them, hey, this course is all about discipline, I'm going to teach you discipline, nobody would sign up.
Yeah, it's a hard sell.
Nobody, because they don't believe that's the problem. Like, well, teach me how to make more money. Well, teach me how to lose 50 pounds. Well, teach me how to, better my relationship with my wife. Yeah. Well, all of that is going to take discipline. Otherwise, it's just a fad diet, right? If I sit there and we say, oh, we're going to do marriage counseling and we're going to sit there in a room and you tell me how you feel and you tell me how you feel. Great, that works right then and there. But what happens after that? Like, if there's no discipline to keep it going, to intentionally show up that way consistently over extended periods of time for your partner, I'm sorry. It's just a fad diet. It's a crash. As soon as you get off of it, you're going to go right back to the old habits.
Your old habits. Yesterday, I saw a video of someone on the street interviewing psychiatrists. I guess he went to their offices and he went to all these different psychiatrists and he says, how many of your patients have you healed? And all of them said none. It was one-on-one and he's just, no, none. That doesn't work that way. It's because they're just talking about the problems. Now, maybe there's some science that it's good. I've never understood that. I want to talk about my problems one time and then address them, decide on some goals, an action plan, and go take care of it. All right, let's switch gears. And before we close out here, let's talk about Bolivia. You and I and 10 other guys in the Brotherhood went to Bolivia earlier this year. And just getting to the city of La Paz, which is the highest capital in the world, 12,000 feet, already had us dizzy, winded. I remember at the hotel, I rarely take an elevator. And when I got to the hotel, I went up to the room and I had to relax because I couldn't breathe. I mean, lightheaded, all this stuff. So we all went through that for a few days. And then we went to the lower base camp. We drove up there. And then that same day in the afternoon, we walked up to 16,000 something feet and did a little playing around. I felt okay. We probably all felt okay, I guess, after a few days in the city, but I don't think any of us acclimated 100% because we all had symptoms. And then we went back to sleep at 14,000 from 16 we were at, went to 14 for base camp. I was one of the first ones that tapped out because I didn't sleep that night. And I felt like I was dying in the morning, and you didn't feel good either. But you pressed on. Well, at that point, 4 of us tapped out and went back down to 12,000 feet. 8 of you continued, and you guys spent that day getting to upper base camp. And then 2 of you, I believe, 2 of the guys said, this is as far as we're going. We'll stay here, Doug and Carlos. And then the rest of you, 6 of you, made an attempt to go out. I based this on, and you were in that top running, but we had a Brotherhood flag. And I based it on, let's see, who have I seen running nonstop all day? It's David Rothenstein. So I gave him the flag, and actually it was Miguel's flag. Miguel Odiva gave us a flag, gave it to David. I said, David, if you can't make it, hand it off to someone else, but you be the guy because I think you're going to make it, right? And nobody made it except you. You made it to 20,000 feet. This is Huayna Potosi.
Yes, sir.
And before you tell us a little bit about that story, about what it took to get there, what were you going through mentally? Because none of us got to share on that. We all turned back, me really early and others later, but none of them went as far as you did. So I think it's important I don't do this for my own self or my own life, really. But I think it's important to commemorate those sort of things. So I made you something.
Oh, my goodness.
It's an ice pick. It has a Brotherhood logo, Javier Montes, Huayna Potosi, and that was May 2nd, 2025 when you got up there. So that's for you. Display it, put it somewhere, at least commemorate an accomplishment.
Wow. Thank you so much. This is amazing. This is awesome. I don't think I've gotten such a thoughtful gift in a very long time.
Well, it wouldn't have been a great gift if you didn't do it. You did it. Hold on. Let's go to that camera. There it is.
Look at that.
Yep. Very nice. So hopefully you'll display that and remember it all the time. And that's just another reminder, your girls, your wife, you guys all see that you did that. So talk about that. You couldn't have felt great. Nobody felt great.
Yeah. So I'll tell you some of the backstory, right? Let's see. So we got to Bolivia, and the first few days sleeping in a few hotel rooms and doing some sightseeing and stuff. Wasn't the most comfortable beds. I'm super big on my food and my nutrition. So
how many eggs do you eat every morning?
I eat about 6 to 12 eggs every single morning. And
we saw you do that. We kept thinking, how can you do this? Is he going to get sick? I think that might have been the trick.
Maybe. So the irony of all this is that morning that you were talking about at base camp, the night before, I was already, I think we were all sleep deprived, nutrition deprived, so malnutrition at that point. The altitude was also, a big thing that was affecting us, the oxygen. And that night, I remember we were at the bottom base camp, and it was just so cold for me. I ended up putting on all my ski gear, right? I had it all. And I was trying to lay down. I was by the fireplace, and I was trying to stay warm. And little by little, guys were going to sleep. And I said, I need to go to sleep. I tried to go to the room, but it was so cold. So I came back to the fire. And finally, everybody was gone. I was the only one by the fire. And I was like, man, let me go back to the room and try to go to sleep. So I went to the room. And anyways, long story short, I slept for like 20 minutes. I got up. I was sleeping in my ski gear because I was so cold. I was in my sleeping bag. I was just so uncomfortable that I wasn't really sleeping much. And toss and turn and wake up, sleep another 20 minutes. And before you know it, the sun was coming out. Mm-hmm. And so the sun comes out and I'm like, well, go back to the fireplace. I'm still cold. And I got to the fire. I turned on the fireplace, and little by little, guys started waking up. You were one of the first ones to wake up. I'm not sure if you remember, but I made it a point. At that point, I decided, and I told you, I said, I'm going home.
Oh, yeah.
And I
said, back to La Paz?
Yes. And I said, no. I'm finding an airplane, and I'm going home to my bed. I need sleep. I just can't function anymore, right? And the guides had told us, hey, we're going to climb up to second base camp. And at second base camp, which is, 18,000, something like that feet, right? We're going to sleep in this metal shed, right?
Like an igloo.
Yeah. So I'm thinking to myself, all right, I'm cold here. If I go up another 3,000 feet, I'm going to be colder. It's pure snow up there. Number one. Number two, We're going to sleep in a metal enclosure. There's no fireplace. There's no kitchen. There's no nothing up there. So I'm not going to get much sleep. And on top of that, we are planning that when we get up there, we're going to go to sleep at 7 and wake up at midnight. So 4 or 5 hours planning.
At a time that you don't sleep normally.
We're going to wake up at midnight, and then we're going to take a 6.5 hour hike up to the top in the middle of the night with no sunlight to warm you up. It's just going to be freezing cold, right? Whatever we have, snacks is what you're going to get to eat, which I'm also hungry. And I just thought, this is just dumb. Like, I'm already destroyed, and now you're telling me we're going to go do this and plan for more destruction. Like, I'm gonna either pass out there, or I don't know, something's going to happen to me. So I said, this is dumb.
So but something had to drive you, because I had those same thoughts, and I thought, this is David Rothenstein's dream, not mine. It was his idea. We put it together, but I didn't care to climb any. I've never been at 6,000 feet at all, or 7 or whatever. So to do this, you had to have something inside of you that pushed you and said, well, I'm still going to do it.
Well, here's what happened. Here's the backstory that most people don't know about this. I had made a decision. I said, I'm going back home. Right. And I was on that group of guys that said we're leaving. And when we did all that, when we said all that, and we kind of split up and we were just waiting for the trucks to arrive, one of the other brothers pulled me aside. It was Doug. And we had talked about, and I had made a promise to myself that I think he was one of the older ones that was there, and his wife was very concerned about him and, how he was going to make it. And I had promised myself that I was going to stay with him the entire time. And I was just going to make sure that he made it up and made it down safely. And he pulled me aside and he tells me, he says, Javier, listen, if you're not going up, like, I'm rethinking my ability to go up. Like, maybe I shouldn't go up. And as I sat there and he tells me these words, I'm like, it's not about physical ability. I haven't slept. Maybe you've slept. I haven't really eaten much. Maybe you've eaten. So I think you could do it. I'm just like, I'm destroyed. I got nothing left. Like, my gas tank is empty. It's silly for me to just do this. I don't even care about a mountain. Like, again, like you said, this is David's idea. I've never had a desire to climb a mountain. It's not a bucket list item for me. Right. And I feel horrible and it's cold and this is just bad. And he says, well, maybe I should turn around too. And I said, Doug, I think you should go. He's like, oh, I don't know. And I was like, look, let me think about it. So I went back to the room by myself and I just sat there and I was like, man, what am I going to do? Number one, I'm breaking the promise that I said I was going to take care of him. Nobody knows. That was an internal promise for me. But number two, look how I'm affecting some of the people around me by my decision. And I sat there for a while and I said, well, I could either, one, I could regret going up there and making a show and, maybe I die and everybody has to carry me down on a stretcher or something, right?
Well, if it's like Mount Everest, you just get left up there.
Yeah.
It's hard to bring someone down.
Yeah. This is Bolivia, right? There's no helicopter coming to save. There's no ski patrol. There's no nothing, right? So I was like, I don't know. I could die up there, make a scene and be this because I just feel horrible. These guys are all studs, right? And I said, well, that, or I could just leave. I came this far and I could just regret not trying. Which regret am I going to have worse? And I said, well, you know what? I'm going to give it my best shot. And I'm going to, number one, I'm going to take Advils to deal with these headaches. And I'm going to ask you for these altitude sickness pills, which I've refused to take. Like, ever since I went on this journey, I don't take any pills. I don't do any of that stuff. I just haven't needed it. I'm pretty healthy and I don't need it. But I said, I'm going to try to give it my best shot and I'm going to try to fulfill my promise to make sure that Doug is safe and go as far as I can. And whatever I can do, I'm going to do. So I'm going to try. And so I went and I took my Advils. I went and asked you for this altitude sickness pills, right? I took that and I went and I laid down. I took about a 45-minute nap till everybody woke up and I woke up feeling great. I was like, yeah. I was aware. I was like, well, I'm drugged up right now. So the Advil's just covering up. I know my body's weak, so I'm just going to take it easy. And I'm just going to trek step by step and I'm going to make it to the next stop. And there I'll analyze what I'm going to do. And I'm just going to do whatever I can.
And what happened at that upper base camp when you woke up?
So we went to upper base camp. We all went to bed. And yes, it was very cold and very uncomfortable. And I remember I had set my alarm for midnight. And when the alarm went off, we were all sitting there. The alarm goes off and nobody moves a muscle. So I just kind of snoozed my alarm. I said, well, let me give him 5 more minutes. And this time I let my alarm ring and ring and ring and ring and ring. I'm up. I'm sitting up in my sleeping bag. I'm looking around. Nobody wants to move a muscle.
They're dead.
Dead. Destroyed. But finally I'm like, guys, it's time to get up. Like, the whole point of this whole thing was we got to hike in the middle of the night to catch the sunrise at the top. If we stay sleeping, we're going to like miss this whole thing.
Yeah.
Right? It's a long hike.
And it's not just to see a pretty sunrise. It's to get on that glacier before the sun comes out and melts it.
Yes.
So you got to do it early.
Yeah. It's this whole deal, right? You got to do it in the middle of the night because this is just the way it works. Otherwise, we're just bombing the whole thing.
Yeah.
So nobody's moving a muscle. I put on my music. I turn on my flashlight, kind of light up the whole little metal igloo. And I'm like, guys, it's time to get up. It's time to get up. I'm feeling pretty good now, right? I take another Advil because now 4 hours are up. And I'm like, all right, let's go. And again, that's when, guys start waking up. Doug is like, oh, I got a migraine. I don't ever get migraines. He says, forget it. I'm not going. Not even the guides were getting up. Right. And I'm like, look, guys, we just got to do this. Like, if we're going to do this, we got to do this now. Like, so people start slowly, sluggish getting up and, you got to put on all your gear and those picks on your feet and go through all this stuff, put on your ski jacket. Right. There's really not much breakfast or some stale bread, some warm water that they brought and, just grab what you can and go. And I got dressed and I was kind of sitting there. I was getting kind of hot and some guys had tapped out and they had assigned the guides and everybody's getting dressed and I'm just sitting there and I'm like, guys, is it okay if I just go? I just want to get started because I'm bored here.
Smart.
Right? I'm just, my energy's going,
Yeah,
like my
going.
Advil, I only got 4 hours.
Yeah,
like,
go.
Let's go, right? And they say, yeah, go ahead. So I got my guide.
They should have given you the flag at that point.
Maybe. So I got my guide and I said, hey, let's go. He's like, all right, let's go. So we just started trekking. So I left before anybody else. And I start hiking with him and we start going and, we're 1 hour into it. My feet start getting really cold. My toes start getting numb. I stopped for a little, put a little heat pad inside my shoes because I'm like, this is really getting uncomfortable. I remember we're about 2.5 hours into it and I'm really getting tired. I'm just like really exhausted. I recorded a video of what the experience was like because nobody was going to believe me of what it was like. And I said, I have to record this because this is just insane. It's really
middle
insane.
of the night, high
Complete
elevation,
darkness
exhaustion
everywhere. You don't see anything. Like there's no pretty views. There's no nothing. It's freezing cold. It's quiet. All you hear is of your own feet, right? And you're climbing. It's like doing, I don't know, like 30 on the treadmill, right? That's the thing. You're just going up and every step you have to like kind of push in to get into the snow because if not, you're going to slide, right? And it's just really uncomfortable. You're not talking with anybody. It's just you and yourself and quiet and dark and just going. And
You're not talking much with the guide?
Not too
Just
much.
Walking?
Yeah, I mean, there's only so much. Maybe the first hour we talked everything.
What are you going to talk about? Go up, go.
Yeah,
It's almost there.
right. So we're going and, 2 hours into it, 3 hours into it, 4 hours into it. I'm like, this is just dumb. This is dumb. Like, at this point, I'm like, this is dumb, right? But I'm waiting for the guys to catch up to me because I'm super tired. So I'm stopping like every, 100 yards. I'm stopping and catching a breather and, nobody's catching up.
And at that point, probably no one would have, even if you would have stopped there. At that point, that many hours in, nobody even went that far.
Well, I did run into Josh and I ran into
Sergio?
I think Sergio, Josh and Sergio. I ran into them. I was sitting down.
They caught up to you at one point?
Yes. They caught up to me at some point. And, they when we caught up, I was done resting and they were about to rest. So we were just like, hey, what's up? All right, cool.
You took off.
All right, we'll see you. So I'm going to take off a little bit. And they stopped to rest for a few minutes. And that was that. So I was just going and stopping. And finally the sun started to come out. And I was just like, I asked the guide, I said, dude, like, I need you to be honest with me because we've been at this for a long time. How much do we have left? And he tells me, we got about 2 hours left. And I said, dude, this can't be. This can't be. This just can't be 2 more hours. The sun's coming out. Like, what do you mean 2 more hours? He's like, it's 2 more hours. So I hike a little bit more. About half hour later, we get to a certain point, and he's like, oh, look, there's the peak. And I'm looking at the peak. I took a video that day, too, of that moment. And I said, we're almost there. He's like, well, we got about another hour left. I said, how's that possible? I'm looking at it. He's like, well, you can't just go there. You have to, go around because it's too steep.
Yeah.
Right? You got to follow the trail. And I said, man, an hour. And I said, I don't got an hour in me. I just don't have an hour in me. I can't do this for an hour. And he's like, well, you want to turn around? And I'm thinking, man, all these guys from the Brotherhood are right behind me. I can't turn around. Like,
they're going to catch me in any second.
Yeah. Like, I can't be weak.
Little did you know they're all back. Good thing you didn't know that.
Yeah. For good or for worse.
They're all waiting for you.
Yeah. So I said, no, I can't. But I'm thinking to myself, I can't move. My legs are exhausted. Like I'm almost dehydrated. Like I've been overdosing on Advils. I've been doing all these things, eating my protein bars. Like dude, I don't have an hour. And he's like, well, what do you want to do? I said, let me sit there and think for a minute. And this is where the real lesson came in. And this is, I guess, the biggest takeaway that I got from this experience. I sat there and I thought to myself, what can I do? And the answer was, I can do 10 steps. That's what I could do. So I tell the guy, I said, look, man, we're going to take 10 steps and then I'm going to sit down again and take a break. And then after I rest, I'll take another 10 steps. And that's exactly what I did. That 1 hour was about an hour and 45 minutes, almost 2 hours because of that pace. But I had nothing left. My tank was completely empty. Everything was just done. But I asked myself, what can I do? And I could do 10 steps. And sometimes every now and then I'd get like 15 or 20 steps in. Maybe it was not so steep or something. I don't know what it was, but I would get 15, 20. And I would just tell him, stop. I have to stop.
And each time you stop, did you sit down?
Yeah.
Or just, oh man, then you had to get back up,
Yeah.
which at that elevation is exhausting.
The whole thing was exhausting. I have my watch that tells me the elevation, tells me my heart rate, right? The whole time I was like at 140, 150, like just the whole time. Those full hours, just brutal. And of course, as you get higher, less oxygen, so you're struggling and and I just said, well, I just gotta take 10 more steps.
You're working harder to get to a worse environment each time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's like 10 more steps. And that's exactly what it was. And about an hour and 45 minutes later, we made it to the summit, got to the top, took our pictures, celebrated. I still hadn't run into anybody. I just thought everybody was still coming. And, 5 minutes later, we're starting to hike down.
Yeah, because you can't stay up there.
No, I mean, there's nothing to do. You look around a little bit. It's maybe about 20 by 20 little area, and that's it. Yeah. So we start walking down. Now I'm starting to see stars because now I'm engaging a different set of muscles to stop myself from sliding forward.
Yeah.
So now it's becoming more painful. And as I'm walking down, I'm just waiting, excited. Like, I can't wait to high five one of the Brotherhood guys. I can't wait. And about a quarter of the way down, I'm like, I don't think anybody's coming.
Nobody's coming.
I don't think anybody's coming because at this point I should have crossed somebody.
Yeah. What a weird feeling.
Yeah. And we're alone at this time, right? And we're walking and I'm trying to make it. And
there's no communication.
No,
you don't know.
Nothing.
They just didn't show up.
No, so
where are they?
Yeah, just keep
Did they
going.
fall off the mountain?
Funny story on the way down. I was so exhausted, and it was so steep that I told him, dude, can I just sit down and slide? So I did. I sat down, I started sliding, and he's holding me with a rope, and we're trying to go down a little bit. But as I'm sliding, like, my feet have the spikes, so I kind of got to lift them up.
Yeah, which is exhausting.
I do that for about a good minute. And then all of a sudden, like, my hamstrings cramp up.
Oh, yeah.
And I have to stop. And I'm getting super bad cramps. I stop, and I'm like, dude, I can't even move.
Yeah.
Now I'm like, I'm not even going to make it down the mountain. So we stop for like 10 minutes, and I'm trying to stretch it. Finally, he's like, hey, are we going to be able to do it? I said, I don't know. Let's try a little bit. And I take a few steps, and it's painful, but now every step is just careful. So now it's even slower walking our way down. I'm not sliding anymore. And
how long was that walk down? Do you know how many hours that took?
Oh, man, I can't think about it off the top of my head, but I would probably say it was probably about a good 3.5 hours.
Oh, man.
Yeah. It was just, and the sun was out now, so now I'm taking off my jacket and carrying it, right?
I mean, it's still freezing.
Yeah.
It's just I'm so sweaty. Loaded with clothing.
Yeah, and the sun's beaming, right? So now I got my sunglasses on. My water runs out too, so I'm like, oh my God, this is starting to get worse.
Well, at least you have snow, but you don't have any electrolytes in it if you eat the snow.
Yeah. So we keep going, and finally he tells me, hey, look, there's the little metal igloo, right? The little upper base camp. And I see it, and it's in the distance. I'm like, oh, kind of felt like a little like I'm almost there.
Yeah.
Still super far away. I mean, like maybe a mile away. But I could just see it, right? And we're working. And then I remember as I'm getting closer, I don't know if it was David or some of the guys, they start screaming, I'm like, oh my God. And then I just got this burst of energy. It felt so good. I thought everybody left because I thought, I asked him, I go, oh, where is everybody? And he's like, oh, they probably went down because it's like, I mean, we've been out here for hours. Nobody's going to wait for you. And when I saw everybody there, I just thought, I was like, man, these guys are true friends. Like, you know, they probably sat there hours.
Miserable.
At upper base camp, just waiting for me to get here. Like, you know, I don't know if maybe whatever, but I felt such an immense feeling of brotherhood and camaraderie and just something that I hadn't really had much in my life.
What a difference, because you said a few years back you were in that entrepreneurial journey, not eating healthy, no friends, right? Not real friends that you were regularly with. What a difference.
Huge difference. Day and night difference, man. My life had completely changed. And this was a good moment for me to just really like, man, these guys are here and they're here for me. Because all of them were feeling bad. All of them, you know,
probably already done a lot of work.
They just could have made a choice. Say, hey, let's go back down to the bottom and feel a lot better.
Yeah, which the bottom is still 14,000 feet. It's still rough. Yeah,
but
they waited at that.
There's a kitchen at the bottom. There's food at the bottom. Yeah. There's a fireplace at the bottom, right? There's beds at the bottom.
Yeah.
They're sitting
There's oxygen. There's a little bit more oxygen.
Yeah, but they all chose to sit there and wait for me.
Great. So a couple of things. The realization of those friends, that's fantastic. Another one is you had mentioned that when your why is beyond yourself, it helps motivate you. And in that case, the why was Doug. You wanted to help be there with him. So you went up. So that was a good example of how it worked out in your life. Another one is those 10 to 15 steps were the equivalent of that additional house that you ran every day to keep building up to a mile, 2, 3, a 5K, a marathon. So it shows that this could be found in any part of our life. We can always say that extra little bit that we could do doesn't have to, you didn't climb the 20,000 foot in one day. You did it in these bits and pieces. And to be there, you had to show up in really good health too. I think for the most part, we all showed up in pretty good health. There was a lot more to it, but you had to do that work for all those months to get there.
Absolutely. So everyone asked me right after, like, what was it? Like, how did you make it to the top? And, you know, I didn't really have a pretty answer or something like too attractive to say, you know, because it was an ugly climb. It's grueling for me. So I didn't really have anything, but I kept asking him, like, man, what was different? Like, why did I make it up? Right? What was it? What did I do? What did I think? Because besides physical, there was a lot of mental beatdown that happened to everybody. Yeah. And the best answer that I've been able to come up with is I was able to let go of the finish line. Right. So I think that originally it was like, oh, I want to get to the top and catch the sunrise. I want to get to the summit. I want to get to and everybody was obsessed with the summit.
It's the whole purpose of the trip.
Right. Right. So this obsession with the finish line, this obsession with just the end and the peak and the success was one of those things that down when the first day I had already broken down, I gave that up. Like I was done with it. Now I was just there to show up. I'll show up for Doug. And then at some point, he, you know, when I left by myself, I was like, well, you know, I'm just going to do what I can. Then the last breaking point was there like an hour and a half before the summit. And I can't no more. And I didn't really care about the summit. But what I was thinking about at that point was just, I need to get to the next 10 steps. If I can keep doing 10 steps, eventually I'm going to get to the top.
Yeah.
But I think what broke most people that had attempted was the thought of how much they had left, right? If I had sat there at that moment and said, I have an hour left, I didn't have an hour in me. Zero. There was not an hour in me. I had literally nothing left. I was in negative.
But you had 10 steps.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's the only thing I was focused on was just take the next 10 steps, Javier. That's it. Let go of I had already let go of it. I didn't care about the summit. I was just take another 10 steps, get a little bit higher, get a little bit higher, get a little bit higher, get a little bit higher. And that's, I think, the difference, because even from, you know, halfway up, 3 hours into it, I was destroyed. If I sat there and I thought, oh, I have another 3 hours left, I don't have 3 hours in me.
Yeah, you can't think of it that way.
And on top of that, the guides had warned you, hey, don't waste all your energy, because when you get to the top, then you got another 4-hour hike down.
Yeah, you have to have something in the tank.
Right. So if I kept thinking about how much I had left and how much I had to make it down, there's no possible way. I didn't have that in me.
Yeah, it's amazing what the body can continue to do if you just you pushed it that extra little bit.
And the lesson there is it's the 10 steps, right? So in my life and in business, even as I'm working on Unstoppable 31 in this challenge, like, you know, people say it all the time, and we as we mentor other men, and my mentors have told me, you know, when you walk into a forest, you can't see the end, right? But you can see 100 yards.
Yeah.
And when you get to those 100 yards, then you can see another 100 yards. And your job is to just keep going and see a little bit further and see a little bit further and then get there and see a little bit further. And that's exactly the lesson that came from this Bolivia Huayna Potosi hike is just take the next 10 steps.
You know, it's human nature to crack when you see too big of a goal, right? If I brought a Navy SEAL to do a training on the beach a few months back, and I had like 40 guys out there. And he told me before, here's what we're going to have them do, and just watch them, because they'll start breaking down because they don't know how much of this there is. And it was run for 5 minutes around these cones.
I was there, I remember.
Oh, okay. And when it was done, go again. And when it was done, go again. And it's like, he said, you're going to start seeing their faces break down. And he said that's what they looked for in their SEAL teams when they were looking for the guy who just went, okay, and just did more. I think these are all good lessons tied to your experience. It's not looking at that end. Now, if that end motivates you, great, but just look at it in those little tiny chunks.
It's a direction, right? It's I know where we're going, right? And this in life, and compared to this, I've had a lot of retrospect about this. Like, there's one path to get to the top of the mountain, right? So the path has already been done. A lot of people have already climbed this mountain before. I don't need to think about the path. I just need to walk 10 steps.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
And I know if I keep walking 10 steps, eventually I'm going to get there because thousands of other people have ever done it before.
Yeah. That's helped me a lot in business, because if I was in poverty and I wanted to be a multimillionaire, I didn't know how. I just fortunately started meeting some successful people and realizing, oh, they're normal. And some are even dumb. And then you go, if he could do it, then I could do it. So yeah, that path has been done. And there's a guide there that at least is saying, we got to go this way, right? Which that's an equivalent to a mentor.
Exactly.
Or somebody who's done it before.
This is a real, again, very equivalent to life. I didn't, I don't know if I told you this, but I didn't want to go on this trip. I was one of the last people to sign up. I was pressured by Doug to go to this trip. Good. He kept on me. And I said, Doug, I don't care about a mountain. Mm-hmm. I never cared to go to Bolivia. I don't even know what is in Bolivia, mm-hmm. And it, lo and behold, it turned out to be this, amazing experience, really a lot of learning and growing. And I think you knew because I was putting together this 31-day course, but nobody else there knew that I was working on this course or what it was going to be called. And I remember after that, the next day we went to a lunch and we sat there and guys were talking, right? And one of our brothers, Jaron, he turns around, he tells me in front of everybody, he says, Javier, like, I don't know what it is about you, but dude, you are freaking unstoppable. And I just had an epiphany moment there. It's kind of like that was the way to just tie everything with a beautiful bow. Mm. And I said, none of you know this, Jaron. You don't even know this. But when we get back home, I'm going to announce that I'm launching our 31-day course, and it's going to be called Unstoppable 31.
Good. Perfect. That worked out very well.
So perfect.
Great timing, because we finished that climb and then you launched your program a few days later. I mean, you did all the work before. You didn't do it in a week, but it was good timing. I think the trip worked out in so many ways for that. And I think it was a good inspiration. You inspired the rest of us who didn't make it. 11 of us didn't get up there. So yeah, super proud of you. Glad to have you here. Keep up the good work, man. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, Duh. It was such a pleasure, Joel. Thank you so much for having me. I thank you for everything. Thank you for always sharing all the information you've always shared with me, your insights and your experience, and keep doing what you're doing, because you're changing lives, man. Mine's one of them.
Thank you.